Johnny Depp, aka Captain Jack Sparrow, the first crush of millions, the mischievous trickster, the ultimate dark-haired pirate, has undergone a shocking transformation that has left fans speechless. Once the face of charm and rebellion, Johnny now looks almost unrecognizable. After the storm of his high-profile divorce and years of chaos, his new appearance has everyone asking, what happened to the Johnny Depp? Well, let's rewind the clock way before the pirate hats, courtroom drama, and Hollywood madness back to Owensboro, Kentucky, on June 9, 1963. That's where Johnny Depp's story began. He was the youngest of 4 kids, born to Betty Sue, a tough-as-nails waitress, and John Christopher Depp, a civil engineer. Life wasn't all glitter and fame, far from it. The Depp family moved around constantly, packing and unpacking boxes like it was a sport, before finally settling in Miramar, Florida, in 1970. By the time Johnny hit his teenage years, things got even rockier. His parents divorced when he was just 15, a tough age to have your world split in half. His mom later remarried a man named Robert Palmer, someone Johnny has actually described as a huge inspiration in his life. But here's where the story takes that first unexpected twist: music. At just 12 years old, Betty Sue gave Johnny a guitar, and he was hooked. Soon, he was playing in little garage bands, strumming out dreams bigger than his small-town life. By 16, he decided he was done with high school. He dropped out to chase music, and when he tried to return a couple of weeks later, the principal told him to not come back and follow his dream. By 1980, he was rocking out with a band called The Kids. They had just enough success in Florida to feel like they were onto something. So they packed up and moved to Los Angeles, the city where dreams either explode into fireworks or crash and burn. They changed their name to Six Gun Method and hustled hard, while Johnny worked random jobs on the side, including telemarketing. In the middle of all this chaos, in December 1983, Johnny married Lori Ann Allison, a makeup artist and the sister of his bandmate's bassist. But just as quickly as it started, the marriage ended in 1985. The band also fizzled before landing a record deal. Johnny didn't walk away empty-handed. He co-wrote a track called Mary for Rock City Angels, which ended up on their album. But here's where Johnny's story starts to feel like one of those wild twists no one could have seen coming. It happened almost by accident. Lori Ann had a connection that would change his entire life. Through her, Johnny met Nicolas Cage. The two hit it off instantly, bonding over late-night drinks and conversations. Somewhere between all that, Cage looked at Johnny and basically said, "Man, you should try acting." At first, Johnny laughed it off. He'd been obsessed with James Dean since reading his biography and watching Rebel Without a Cause. But actually acting? That wasn't in the cards, or so he thought. Still, Cage pushed him, even helping him land an audition with director Wes Craven for A Nightmare on Elm Street. Johnny, with zero acting experience, walked into the auditions for a horror movie. And guess what? He nailed it. Or, more specifically, Wes Craven's daughter spotted him and told her dad, "That one." Just like that, Johnny Depp, the accidental actor, was born. In the movie, he played the boyfriend who gets gobbled up by Freddy Krueger. Not exactly glamorous, but it was enough to get his foot in the Hollywood door. Johnny didn't even want to be an actor at the time. He was just doing it to pay the bills left behind by his failed music career. Still, more roles started trickling in, like Private Resort in 1985, and a small part in Oliver Stone's gritty war drama Platoon in 1986. But it wasn't until 1987 that things blew wide open. That year, Johnny became a household name thanks to the TV show, 21 Jump Street. He played an undercover cop posing as a high school student, and overnight he went from struggling musician to teen idol. Girls plastered his face on their bedroom walls. Magazines couldn't get enough of him. But while the world adored him, Johnny hated it. To him it felt fake, like he was being packaged and sold as a product instead of an actor. He didn't want to be the pretty face cop on TV. He wanted something real, something challenging. So he walked away from safe choices and started picking roles that nobody expected. His first big swing was Cry Baby in 1990, a musical comedy that mocked the very teen idol image Hollywood was trying to pin on him. Critics didn't quite get it at first, but the movie eventually gained cult classic status. Then came the role that truly changed everything: Edward Scissorhands. Teaming up with director Tim Burton, Johnny played the gentle, tragic figure with blades for hands. It was dark, it was weird, and it was completely unforgettable. Johnny didn't just act, he transformed. To prepare, he studied Charlie Chaplin films, learning how to express deep emotions without words. Critics praised him left and right, calling it a career-defining performance. And for Johnny, it was more than just another gig. It was his ticket out of being typecast. It earned him his first Golden Globe nomination and cemented his partnership with Tim Burton, one of the most important creative relationships of his career. But here's the thing about Johnny: he never wanted to be predictable. After Edward Scissorhands, he vanished for a couple of years, only popping up for a cameo in Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Then, in 1993, he came back with a trio of films that showed off his eccentric side. By 1994, Johnny was on fire. He reunited with Burton for Ed Wood, a black-and-white biopic about one of Hollywood's most notoriously bad directors. At the time, Johnny admitted he was pretty depressed about acting and filmmaking, but Ed Wood gave him joy again. He loved the idea of playing an optimistic dreamer, even if the guy was considered a failure. The critics were blown away, praising Johnny's performance as proof that he wasn't just a heartthrob, he was a serious actor. And he didn't slow down. In 1995 alone, he starred in 3 wildly different films. Don Juan DeMarco with Marlon Brando, where he played a man convinced he was the world's greatest lover. Dead Man, an artsy black-and-white western. And Nick of Time, a thriller that, well, let's just say it didn't exactly wow audiences. But the real showstopper came in 1997 with Donnie Brasco. To prepare, he spent time with the real-life agent Joseph Pistone, and the result was one of his most authentic, gritty performances yet. That same year, he also made his directorial debut with The Brave, starring himself and Marlon Brando. But unlike Donnie Brasco, this one was a flop. Critics tore it apart, calling it slow and self-indulgent. The reviews were so harsh that Johnny refused to release the film in the US. But Johnny wasn't the type to quit. In 1998, he threw himself into Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, based on Hunter S. Thompson's wild novel. The movie bombed at the box office, but like many Depp projects, it later gained cult status. And by the end of the decade, he kept experimenting. By the time the 1990s wrapped up, Johnny had already done what few actors ever manage: broken free from Hollywood's box, refused to be predictable, and built a reputation as one of the most versatile, risk-taking actors of his generation. But if he'd already achieved all that, what could possibly be left for him to do that would shock the world even more? Well, 2003 happened. The year that changed everything. Johnny was already known as Hollywood's wild card. He wasn't the kind of guy to chase blockbusters just for a paycheck. He was always chasing characters, the strange ones, the broken ones, the dreamers. And that trend continued into the new millennium. Johnny signed on to star in Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. At first, it seemed like just another studio adventure flick. But the second Captain Jack Sparrow swaggered onto the screen, stumbling, slurring, and grinning like a rock star who'd had too much rum, audiences knew they were witnessing something iconic. Johnny had modeled the character after Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, mixed with a dash of Pepe Le Pew, the cartoon skunk. The studio was nervous at first. They thought he was playing it too weird. But audiences? They went crazy for it. Jack Sparrow became a cultural phenomenon. And suddenly Johnny was no longer just an actor, he was the actor of the moment. He scored Oscar, BAFTA, and Golden Globe nominations, won a Screen Actors Guild Award, and cemented himself as a global superstar. And the best part? Johnny admitted that Jack was definitely a big part of him. Maybe that's why he felt so real. By this point, he wasn't just acting, he was building an empire. In 2004, he launched his production company, Infinitum Nihil, with Warner Brothers. The next year, he reunited with Tim Burton for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, taking on the iconic role of Willy Wonka. With his pale face, odd haircut, and unsettling voice, Johnny's Wonka was divisive, but undeniably memorable. He followed that with Burton's animated film Corpse Bride, lending his voice to the awkward but lovable Victor Van Dort. And of course, Jack Sparrow wasn't finished. The pirate sequels, Dead Man's Chest in 2006 and At World's End in 2007, broke box office records. Fans couldn't get enough of Jack's rum-soaked swagger, and surveys even showed that most people went to the theater just for Johnny. He was now one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. But Johnny didn't stop there. In 2007, he took another wild leap with Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street. This was Tim Burton and Johnny's sixth collaboration, and it required Johnny to do something totally new: sing. Instead of training with a vocal coach, Johnny recorded demos with his old bandmate Bruce Whitkin and taught himself. The result? Surprisingly haunting vocals that earned him both critical praise and a Golden Globe win. The role even got him another Oscar nomination. Watching him in Sweeney Todd, razor in hand, slashing throats with the same delicate intensity Edward Scissorhands once shaped hedges, critics couldn't help but marvel at how far he'd come. Johnny had always thrived in the strange and the gothic, and this film was his twisted crown jewel. By 2009, Johnny was ready for another transformation, this time as the legendary gangster John Dillinger in Michael Mann's Public Enemies. Johnny delivered a horrific, grounded performance that critics called something else. Unlike other gangster portrayals, Johnny's Dillinger didn't feel like a movie character. He felt real, almost unsettlingly so. The movie was a hit, further cementing Johnny's reputation as a shapeshifter. Every role felt like a new gamble, a new reinvention, a new personality, and people couldn't stop watching. The 2010s, however, would bring a whole new chapter, one filled with more extremes, both in his career and in his personal life. Johnny Depp kicked off the 2010s with yet another Tim Burton collaboration, Alice in Wonderland, where he stepped into the wild shoes of the Mad Hatter. The movie, despite critics being a little meh about it, absolutely blew up at the box office, making over $1 billion worldwide. But if his movies were making him untouchable on screen, what could possibly go wrong when the cameras weren't rolling? Well, Johnny's love life was already writing a script of its own, one full of twists, drama, and chaos that no Hollywood thriller could ever match. By 2011, Johnny was on a roll again with Rango, where he voiced a quirky lizard in a cowboy hat, and then Pirates of the Caribbean, on Stranger Tides, which, of course, cashed in millions. But this was also the year he revisited an old flame of sorts, Hunter S. Thompson's work, with The Rum Diary. And here's where the real-life drama slipped in. Because on the set of The Rum Diary, Johnny met actress Amber Heard. At the time, nobody knew this would spark one of the messiest, most publicized relationships in Hollywood history. Before Amber, though, Johnny's romantic timeline had already been a roller coaster. He remained on good terms with his first wife, Lori. But then came his string of Hollywood relationships, engagements to Jennifer Grey and Sherilyn Fenn, his iconic romance with Winona Ryder, and his long relationship with supermodel Kate Moss. All high profile, all headline-making. But it was French actress and singer Vanessa Paradis who seemed to finally ground him. They were together from 1998 until 2012 and had 2 children together, Lily Rose, born in 1999, and Jack, born in 2002. Johnny himself admitted that fatherhood gave him a solid foundation, something real in the whirlwind of Hollywood. For over a decade, Vanessa and Johnny seemed like the perfect bohemian pair. Low drama, artsy, and private. Which is why when they announced their split in 2012, it shook fans everywhere. It was the end of what many thought was Johnny's calmest, most stable love story. And right after that breakup, we get Amber Heard. Their chemistry from the Rum Diary carried over into real life, and soon Johnny was smitten. By 2015, the two were married in a quiet civil ceremony. At first it looked like Johnny had found love again, but it didn't take long for cracks to show. And in 2016, Amber filed for divorce, dropping a bombshell. She claimed Johnny had been abusive during their relationship, especially when alcohol or drugs were involved. She even filed for a temporary restraining order, and suddenly the private life of one of the world's biggest stars was under a microscope. Johnny, of course, denied the allegations, calling them false and insisting that she was after financial gain. The media circus that followed was unlike anything Hollywood had seen in years. Tabloids, TV channels, and online platforms couldn't get enough. The couple eventually settled in August 2016, with Johnny paying Amber $7 million. She pledged to donate it to charity, including the ACLU and the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. Their divorce was finalized in early 2017, and both released a joint statement calling their relationship intensely passionate and at times volatile, but always bound by love. It was like the calm after the storm, or at least that's what everyone thought. But of course, the story didn't end there. If anything, this was just the opening act of what would become one of the most talked about legal and personal battles in entertainment history. Because in the years that followed, Johnny and Amber's names would stay permanently etched in headlines. And the truth? Well, that was about to explode onto the world stage in ways no one could have predicted. When Johnny first stepped into the courtroom, it wasn't just about legal battles or headlines. It was about a man the world had watched transform. People were not only listening to his words, they were staring, almost in shock, at how different he looked. His hair was slicked back, his face a mix of pale and tired, and behind his tinted glasses, his eyes carried both defiance and exhaustion. This wasn't the Johnny Depp people remembered from red carpets and movie premieres. This was a man whose life was on trial, and his physical presence reflected every ounce of the storm he had endured. His tailored suits gave him a sense of sharpness, but they couldn't hide the thinness in his face or the lines that now carved deeper into his skin. When the UK trial against the Sun played out, fans and critics alike whispered about how weary he looked. The once boyish charm had faded, replaced by a kind of worn-out gravitas. There were murmurs everywhere. Was this the toll of years of scandal, addiction, heartbreak, and stress? Or was this simply time catching up with him under the most unforgiving spotlight? Whatever the answer, people couldn't look away. His appearance became part of the story. By the time the Virginia trial against Amber began, his image had become almost symbolic. Each day he walked into the courthouse like he was stepping onto a stage, but the performance wasn't for a film, it was for his name, his career, his reputation. And once again, it was his look that struck people first. It was impossible to separate the man from the myth. Social media exploded with commentary, not only on the testimony but on his physical changes. Fans defended him passionately. Critics, on the other hand, claimed his appearance reflected years of self-destruction. And still, the intrigue grew. Every gesture he made in court, every glance, every faint smile, it was dissected by millions. People compared him to the Johnny Depp of just a decade earlier, the man who still lit up the screen as Captain Jack Sparrow. The contrast was haunting. Gone was the mischievous sparkle, replaced by an almost somber presence. The trials themselves were filled with revelations, accusations, and endless headlines. The trials may have ended. The verdicts may have been delivered. But the image of Johnny in those courtrooms remains burned into public memory. It wasn't just about guilt or innocence. It was about watching a man stripped of his Hollywood armor, revealing the raw, unfiltered consequences of a life lived in extremes. And as he walked out of court for the final time, cameras flashing, people weren't just asking about the outcome of the case. For as long as Johnny has been in the public eye, his life has been marked not only by movie premieres and screaming fans, but also by chaos that seemed to shadow him everywhere he went. It's almost as if the turbulence of his personal world mirrored the unpredictable characters he played on screen. But when you line up the controversies, the arrests, the lawsuits, they paint a picture of a man constantly wrestling with storms, many of which spilled into the headlines and added yet another layer to his ever-changing image. The first brush with trouble came back in 1989. Johnny was arrested in Vancouver after an altercation with a security guard who came to shut down a loud party in his hotel room. It was the kind of early scandal that made people raise an eyebrow, but in true Johnny fashion, it only added to his rebellious reputation. He wasn't a squeaky clean heartthrob, he was the unpredictable one. And fans couldn't decide whether to shake their heads or cheer him on. Then came 1994, a moment that would become one of the most famous Johnny scandals. Staying at the Mark Hotel in New York with his then-girlfriend Kate Moss, Johnny caused such destruction to his suite that police had to get involved. It was a scene straight out of a rock star's diary. When photos of Johnny looking haggard and drained after the arrest made their way to the press, people started to wonder, was this the eccentric charm of an artist, or was it the early signs of a darker spiral? Johnny agreed to pay nearly $10,000 in damages, and the charges were dropped. But the memory of his chaotic night remained part of his story. And the stories didn't stop there. In 2012, Johnny found himself in another lawsuit, this time not because of his actions directly, but because of his bodyguards. UC Irvine professor Robin Eckert claimed she was roughed up by Johnny's security team at a Los Angeles concert. She alleged that she was handcuffed, dragged across the floor, and left with a dislocated elbow. Johnny's lawyers argued she provoked the incident, but the image of a woman injured and accused Johnny's entourage of violence wasn't easy to shake. He eventually settled the case, but once again, it chipped away at the line between Hollywood star and scandal magnate. Money, too, became a battlefield. In 2017, Johnny accused his management company of mismanaging his fortune and leaving him in massive debt. The company fired back, saying Johnny was responsible for his own financial downfall. Lavish spending, lawsuits, unpaid bills, it all added to the story of a man losing control behind the scenes. The lawsuit was settled, but the drama highlighted a less glamorous side of his life. A star struggling with both reputation and reality. It was impossible to ignore the undercurrent tying it all together. Johnny's long struggle with substance abuse. The hollow cheeks, the fluctuating weight, the tired eyes, all of it suggested that the controversies weren't just headlines, they were taking a physical toll. For some fans, they only cemented Johnny's image as the unpredictable rebel, the star who lived outside the rules. For others, they revealed the cracks in a man overwhelmed by fame, addiction, and constant battles. If there's one thread that runs through Johnny's life as consistently as his films and controversies, it's his long, complicated relationship with substances. For Johnny, addiction wasn't a sudden downfall. It was more like a storm brewing from childhood, building force as he grew older. It started when he was just 11 years old. While most kids his age were worried about school or playing outside, Johnny was already experimenting, sneaking his mother's nerve pills. By 12, he was smoking. By 14, he admitted he had tried every kind of drug there was. That kind of early exposure doesn't just shape a childhood, it reshapes a life. As his Hollywood career blossomed, so too did his reliance on alcohol and substances. By the early 1990s, during the filming of What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Johnny himself admitted that alcohol abuse had taken hold. He described it later with startling honesty, saying that he had poisoned himself with alcohol for years. It wasn't self-destruction in a sudden blaze, it was slow, steady erosion. Fast forward to 2013, and there seemed to be a moment of hope. Johnny announced he had quit drinking, even describing his relationship with alcohol in almost romantic terms. At that time, it seemed like he was choosing clarity, especially in the wake of his breakup with longtime partner Vanessa Paradis. He knew leaning on the bottle could have been fatal. For fans, it sounded like he was finally breaking free from the cycle. But addiction rarely lets go so easily. By 2018, when Rolling Stone profiled him, the picture painted was far from sobriety. The journalist described Johnny as drifting between hilarious and incoherent, openly smoking hashish during the interview. And when his former business managers accused him of spending $30,000 a month on wine, Johnny didn't deny it, he corrected them. During the 2020 UK libel trial, Johnny laid bare the depth of his habits. He admitted to being addicted to illegal substances and abusing alcohol. Still, he insisted he was never addicted to most of them, as if addiction had levels that didn't quite apply to him. And yet, the evidence was hard to ignore. And that brings us to today, an older Johnny Depp, a new Johnny, the one who has left some in awe and some shocked. After years of chaotic legal battles, personal hardships, and public scrutiny, Johnny is finally stepping back into the spotlight, this time with a striking transformation that has fans calling it the start of his Silver Fox era. The first-look image from his upcoming thriller Day Drinker, released by Lionsgate, revealed him, and he is nearly unrecognizable. A full head of silver hair, a bushy gray beard, piercing blue eyes, and a sleek navy suit. Leaning casually against a bar with a cocktail in hand, Johnny gives off a contemplative confidence that immediately sparked excitement across social media. The fan response was instant and overwhelming. Many celebrated his new look, praising how the actor carried the sophisticated Silver Fox style. Comments ranged from simple admiration to playful comparisons to pop culture icons. The suave persona he now projects reminded many of the Dos Equis commercials' most interesting man in the world. Others compared him to his own portrayal of Gellert Grindelwald in the Fantastic Beasts series, noting a similar intensity and aura. The buzz surrounding Johnny's transformation isn't just about his appearance. Fans are also applauding the work of the makeup and costume departments for helping him reinvent himself. The intricate combination of hair, beard, wardrobe, and striking blue contact lenses made the actor almost unrecognizable, showing a deliberate effort to separate this repetition of Johnny from the public image that has followed him in recent years. Day Drinker marks a major return for Johnny to the big screen after a period dominated by personal and legal battles. Directed by Mark Webb, the film also stars Penelope Cruz, a frequent collaborator and one of the actors Johnny has a strong on-screen chemistry with. The film follows a private yacht bartender, played by Madeline Klein, who encounters a mysterious guest, portrayed by Johnny. As events unfold, the two become entangled with a criminal figure, played by Cruz, revealing a web of surprising connections and unexpected twists. Manu Rios, Aaron Piper, Juan Diego Boto, and Annika Boyle round out the supporting cast. Fans have been quick to frame Johnny's return as more than a simple role. His appearance at the 2023 Cannes Film Festival highlighted this theme. Speaking candidly about his career and the fallout from his divorce, Johnny reflected on the challenges he faced. He quickly clarified that he no longer dwells on the industry. The imagery of Johnny holding a cocktail, dressed impeccably in navy blue with a matching light blue shirt, encapsulates the evolution of the actor's public persona. Gone are the unkempt rock star vibes of his past. In their place is a mature, self-assured figure who seems fully aware of his past struggles, but is no longer defined by them. The striking silver hair and beard are symbolic, signaling a man who has faced battles with substance abuse, personal turmoil, and public scrutiny, yet is stepping forward with confidence, artistry, and a renewed sense of purpose. Set to release in 2026, Day Drinker positions Johnny not only as an actor returning to Hollywood but as a figure reclaiming his narrative. The film's commercial concept, blending suspense, romance, and intrigue, paired with Johnny's carefully crafted transformation, demonstrates that the actor is intent on embracing both his craft and his public image with deliberate care. Fans, critics, and industry insiders alike are watching closely, eager to see if this marks the beginning of a new chapter. A revitalized Johnny Depp, ready to command the screen once again. As the first images continue to circulate, the sentiment among fans is clear. Johnny's comeback is not just about a film, it's about resilience, reinvention, and the return of one of Hollywood's most iconic and enigmatic figures. The Silver Fox era has begun, and the world is waiting. But what do you think? Will Johnny Depp's comeback finally reach the heights he deserves? If you love Johnny as much as I do, drop a "I've got a jar of dirt" in the comments below. And if this got you thinking about your high school crushes, don't forget to check out the absolute truth Cher revealed about the first love of her life.